Hey everyone, Elle here. Welcome back to my channel and to my series on my working holiday visa experience in New Zealand. Today we're going to be talking about the visa itself as well as some of my work experience here. Things like what the visa application process is like, where to find jobs, what types of jobs you might get, all that good stuff. So let's get going. A quick note before we get into things today, I just want to point out that the information I'm sharing with you today is from my personal perspective, and this is coming as somebody from the United States of America applying for a working holiday visa in New Zealand. There are tons of other countries where you can do working holiday visas, and also the requirements, the application process, that will all be different depending on what country you're coming from. So my experience is coming from the US, your experience might be different, but hopefully this is helpful regardless. So first things first, the working holiday visa is targeted at young people, as defined on the New Zealand website. So it's available for most countries for people from 18 to 30. There are a couple of exceptions to that rule, notably Canada and the UK. Those citizens can apply up to age 35, and they can also stay up to 2 years, whereas pretty much everyone else you get a 1-year maximum, but with the option of a slight extension that I'll talk about later. But general rule of thumb, if you're under 30, New Zealand as well as a lot of other countries, working holiday is a great way to see the country if you're wanting to work a little bit while also enjoying a holiday and some traveling. So what's the visa application like? Overall, I found it pretty straightforward and simple. They do ask you some questions regarding like your character and background and things like that, but I didn't think it was too lengthy or too difficult. So costs to apply will vary depending on what country you're applying for, what country you're applying from. So when I applied for the United States back in August of 2022, my application fee was about $20 US, and I just checked the website today and it's actually gone up to $285 US. I'm not really sure why. I did wonder in the beginning, since I was applying in August, that was right around the time that things were opening back up here, travel was opening back up, and people were really desperate for workers, and honestly they still are. Any town in New Zealand you go to, tons of places are hiring, so I'm not sure if there was maybe just a big push to try to get workers in and they dropped the fee down. I don't really know the reason why, but maybe just keep an eye on that. If the $285 is a bit cost prohibitive to you, maybe just check the website every few weeks or every few months as you're planning your own working holiday visa. That is subject to change. Moving on to processing time. So my visa came back in just under 24 hours, which I took as a signal from the universe that this was the right move for me. And especially because at the time they had the processing times for these visas listed as anywhere from, I think it was like 4 weeks all the way up to like 12 weeks or 16 weeks, something. It was something pretty major. So I was not expecting to hear back quickly. I kind of applied on a bit of a whim. I had just gone through a breakup and I was like, let's apply, it's only $20, who cares? Was not expecting to get that yes back the next day. So that was a pretty exciting moment for me. But the website as of today still says that their processing time is around 3 days for most applications, and 90% of applications are processed less than 30 days. So if you are looking to apply for this, you probably don't have to plan too far ahead. It's always good to have some wiggle room, but you may get in really quick, which is cool. Basics of how it works. Once you're approved for the visa, you have 1 year from that date, from the date that you get the email, the letter saying, yes, you can come to our country on a working holiday visa. You get 1 year from that date to enter the country. And from there, you have 1 year to leave. So for me, I got approved on August 20-something. And I didn't enter the country until November 3rd of 2022, so I have until November 3rd of this year to leave. And looking at flights, I'm probably going to leave around the end of October because there aren't a lot of flights those first few days, and I don't want to be pushing my luck too much with that. But that's a really nice thing, I think, as far as planning ahead if you aren't too sure about when you'll be wanting to or able to come to New Zealand. If this is kind of a dream that you're hoping to do but are still saving up for, know that you have some wiggle room. You have an entire year to get here and you still get that full year of your visa. So there is an extension option, and this is something to keep in mind if you think you might want to stay in New Zealand a little bit longer. There is a pretty specific option for this. So if you work in horticulture or viticulture, so doing farm work, picking fruit, working with sheep, things like that, working on a vineyard, doing wine stuff, anything under those categories, you can get an extension on your working holiday visa for up to 3 months, but to apply for that, you have to have had to work in those fields for at least 3 months during your stay here. It doesn't have to be consecutive, it doesn't have to be for the same company, but you have to have at least 3 months doing picking jobs, farming jobs, things like that to apply for the extension. So that's an option if you want to stay a little longer. After you've sent in your application and you get that email back saying that you're approved for the working holiday visa, make sure you look through that whole document. They send a ton of resources. There's several links that will be in that email that will take you to various New Zealand government websites that talk about things like what the main seasons are for picking jobs. So if you're looking to travel around both the North and South Island, it kind of breaks it down into, you can spend, for example, we just had the hop harvest happen here in the Nelson, Tasman area pretty recently. So you could do that for a little bit, then you can go pick berries, and there's these different options to kind of pick your way around New Zealand. That's a big thing in Australia as well. So yeah, use those resources that they send you. It's really, really helpful. But there are also, beyond the farming jobs, New Zealand in general, my experience being here for the last almost 5 months, everywhere is hiring right now, and I expect this to continue for a while. What I've seen as somebody who's been in the hospitality industry for a long time, post-COVID, people are desperate for workers, and I think a lot of that is just many of us who have been in the industry for a long time, who had to change gears during COVID, realized that, maybe we didn't have to go back to working in restaurants, working in hotels, things like that, and it shows other career pathways that treated us a little bit better maybe. And so it's hard to find workers in those industries, and at the same time, travel is booming. People are excited to get back out there. So everyone's needing help. Any town that you go to in New Zealand, you'll find people needing housekeepers, people needing servers, bartenders, even other things like construction. There's a lot of construction jobs in these areas as well. So there's a ton of options depending on what your skills are. Plenty of jobs out there. And there's a few different sites that I found helpful. So if you're looking for more of a longer term kind of traditional type of job, you can look on Seek, S-E-E-K, or Trade Me. Trade Me is New Zealand's version of Craigslist for my American friends watching. You can find jobs on there. You can also find things for sale. That's where I bought my car. You can also find flatmates, things like that, all kinds of stuff on Trade Me. So definitely a good resource if there's any random stuff you need. Camping gear, as a quick aside, there's always people trying to get rid of lots of camping gear, especially as they're coming. They're leaving their own working holidays and they're trying to get rid of all their stuff for cheap, so something to keep in mind. If you are looking for short-term, more casual work, picking jobs, as well as jobs that will provide you accommodation and meals, for those you want to look at the Backpacker Board. So I'll link all of these below, but the New Zealand Backpackers Board is a really great resource for jobs. They also have a ton of articles and other things if you are doing the backpacking style of traveling in New Zealand. That's a really great resource. And yeah, you can search for jobs by all these different filters, and it's really great for that kind of stuff. My preference for finding jobs more recently has been Facebook groups, and I use these for a lot of different things. As I am traveling around and I know that I'm going into an area, I get onto Facebook and I look up, for example, I came to Nelson and I found the Nelson, Tasman area just community group page, and this is a great resource to connect with people if you need, a ride to the airport, if you need, there's all kinds of stuff. There's jobs on there. A lot of places will just have their own specific jobs page as well. So yeah, check out Facebook. I'm not a big Facebook person as far as like posting and being on there for friends, but I do use it for these community groups, and I think it's a really great way to connect with the local community, so give that a shot. So I'm going to go into talking about contracts a little bit, because this is one of the things that made my first job here, kind of a nightmare. So if you're looking to work part-time or even full-time, but for a temporary, casual kind of job, to fund your travels as you're moving around doing kind of these short temporary things, a casual contract is probably what you'll come across with a lot of the picking, even some of your housekeeping and things like that. If you're just trying to help out for a few weeks, you'll probably be on a casual contract. And these can be great for a lot of reasons, but they can also be misused, so just be careful and make sure you're reading through all the details of that. The main reason that these casual contracts exist is to give workers the flexibility to either accept or decline shifts. So under a casual contract, what should be happening is basically your employee will reach out to you every week and say, these are the shifts we have available this week, do you want to work them? You can say yes or no. So you should not be on a set roster. You should not have an expectation of I'm working, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. It'll be, kind of picking and choosing here or there. And that was the main thing that kind of got abused in my situation. When you're on a working holiday visa, you cannot accept a permanent position, so just be cautious of this as well. If you're applying for jobs and you see the word permanent, you cannot apply for that. But you can apply for things that say short-term, contract, temporary, seasonal, things like that that are designed to be for a fixed, shorter term. Those you're all good for. I'm going to tell you the story of my first nightmarish job in Franz Josef Waiau down on the West Coast. So I was hired as a casual worker, and the way that it was explained to me was that it would be me and a few other people kind of running this lodge together, and my employer described it to me as the other people were a lot more motivated to work. I was looking to have a bit of time off to explore and some flexibility in my schedule so that I could do hiking and things like that. And he said, yeah, no problem. You can take days off and switch around, should be easy. And when I got there, I got thrust into this managerial role out of nowhere, and basically was in charge of these 3 18-year-olds, and it was just me and them running this 5-star lodge, and it was quite stressful, and I was working 50+ hour weeks, and I worked for 4 weeks straight without a single day off, so not at all how that was supposed to go. I also sat down with one of my managers at one point because I had worked over the Christmas and New Year holidays, and initially I hadn't gotten any holiday pay for that, and they tried to say, oh, that's not how we do things here. And I said, no, it's New Zealand law. So if you look into this, the New Zealand government website has a lot of information, but public holidays are required to be paid time and a half. So that's not a negotiable thing. If you work on what is considered a public holiday, you have to get your time and a half pay for that. So just make sure that that's happening. I would hope that this wouldn't happen too many times, but someone tried to do it to me, so they might try to do it to you too, so just watch out for that. Make sure you read through your contract and make sure that your working conditions are actually living up to that contract. If they're not, talk to your boss. If they're not being helpful, you can reach out to, they have the citizens advice places where you can go and get assistance, or I think there's some contacts on the New Zealand website, the government website, that talks about labor and employment and all of that. So another note with casual contracts, something that you should see included is an 8% holiday pay. So I was a little confused about this when I first got here. I was seeing it in some of the job ads. So just to explain it real quick, basically, if you're employed in New Zealand, you get a certain amount of paid time off per year. And so for casual workers, short-term, seasonal, things like that, we're not going to be here long enough to accrue those benefits and then use them. So the way that they've worked around this is to tack on an extra 8% of your regular pay onto every single paycheck, and that's kind of to cover you for holidays. So it's a really nice little extra side bonus, and make sure you're getting it if you're a casual worker. So continuing on with my specific experiences, my second job here was as a housekeeper at a motel, and this again was a casual contract. This time I actually had to kind of bug my employer for my contract, so usually you should be offered a contract within the first week or two. I'm not sure if there's an exact cutoff date legally, but it is required by law that your employer has you sign a contract of employment. And this is really important. It explains your rights, it explains their rights, and it's just kind of a protection for both of you. So make sure you're getting this. I did have to kind of ask a couple times, like, hey, am I gonna get a contract? Because it had been several weeks that I had been employed there and not had one. So yeah, just watch out for that. But this was again a casual contract, which initially I was working pretty set days, working full time there, but they did. Every week, my boss would text me on Sunday night and say, hey, these are the shifts we have available for this week. Can you work this, this, and this? And I would generally just say yes. But there were a couple times where I said, actually, no, I'm not available on that day, but I can do this other day. And that was totally fine. It is completely within your rights to decline any shifts, and your employer can't hold that against you for any reason. And with this job, since I've been having some health issues, I've decided to transition away from housekeeping. It's just a little too hard on my body right now. And I talked to them about this, and they were super understanding. And this is where the casual contract has helped us out a bit, because I told them I'm willing to stay on as a casual worker, and occasionally if somebody gets sick or has to call out for whatever reason, they can text me and say, hey, this happened, can you cover one shift this week? And I can decide from there if I want to do that. So that's kind of the ideal, what casual contracts were set up for, to cover regular employees getting sick, needing maternity leave, whatever, things like that. So for job number 3, I started this job while I was still working the second job at the motel, and started working at a restaurant. Again, still kind of chasing down that contract. I'm not sure why I've had so many issues with employers not giving me contracts or breaching contracts, but we are working out the terms of that, and part of that is because when they first sent it to me, it wasn't really clear what type of employee that I was, and I asked my boss about it, and she said, oh, you're a permanent part-time, and I said, I'm actually not supposed to accept part-time positions. Can you change it so that it says that I am a short-term, temporary, something like that, in the wording of the contract? I don't want to breach my visa and get in trouble. I don't want them to get in trouble for hiring somebody permanent who's on a temporary visa. So we're still working on clearing that up, but most likely I will be on some kind of short-term contract for that. And again, still getting that 8% holiday pay. So if I was hired just as a regular permanent employee, I'd be accruing paid days off that I could use after, say, 6 months or a year. But since I am here short term, probably, let's say maybe 4 months, I wouldn't be eligible for that, so I should be getting that 8% again. So just keep reading those contracts and make sure nobody's doing any funny business to you. So our last topic today is going to be on workaway. Are you looking to do a working holiday in New Zealand and not actually work? Do you have enough money saved up where you don't need to work? You lucky. I'm just kidding. If that's your situation, awesome, good for you. Hopefully you've saved up enough money, or for whatever reason you aren't too concerned about getting a job while you're here. If you're looking to travel somewhat on a budget in this scenario, what I would recommend is doing workaways. There's also a couple of other websites you could check out. HelpX is one of them, as well as Woofing. Specifically, if you're looking to do farm work, Woofing is great for that. If you're looking for maybe some farm work, maybe some childcare, social media, all kinds of things, Workaway is going to be your friend for this one. So if you don't know about Workaway, the basic premise of it is that you are providing a little bit of work in exchange for free housing, and usually some meals are included as well. And there are a ton of variables for this. So I've actually only done one proper workaway, but I've been in some similar situations to this in the States, and I've had friends that have done this all over Europe. And it's a really, really great way to travel for cheap, because you're essentially giving anywhere typically from 2 to 5 hours per day of some kind of contribution, whether that's weeding the garden, preparing meals, babysitting the kids or taking them to school, even sometimes helping people with like photography, things like that. Any kind of skill that you have is probably going to be somewhere on Workaway. Someone's looking for it. So you're offering your skill up to somebody who needs that, and instead of paying you, they are offering you accommodation and usually meals as well. So this is a really cool option if you are in a financial place where you don't have to have an income coming in constantly, or maybe if you just want to take a break for a little bit. It's a great way to travel around and see things. I would also recommend this if you are kind of new to traveling, if you're having any nerves about getting out into a new country and, kind of like, oh, what am I gonna do? There's, so many variables, whatever. It can be a really great landing spot to just give you, you'll be staying with a family most likely, some locals who can show you around. All of my friends have had pretty much really great experiences with just having super welcoming, friendly people who are happy to show you a bit of their lifestyle and the local area that they live in exchange for a reasonable amount of work. And I think that about covers it. So hopefully this answers some of your questions about the working holiday visa in New Zealand. If there's anything that I missed, please write a comment below and I'll do my best to respond. And also if there's any bigger questions that you have that you want me to tackle in a future video, let me know. Thanks, and see you next time. Tea time. Hey y'all, one more quick thing before I let you go today. I recently set up a page with buymeacoffee.com. If you want to support me making these videos, doing this kind of content, please consider donating at this link right here. It starts at just $5 and you can really help me out with this. So thanks and see ya!